Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Bits and Pieces NYC. Here, bit by bit, piece by piece, we want to explore all things Caribbean, all things Caribbean American, and all things New York. So we plan to have a very spirited discussion this evening. So please sit back, relax, stay tuned, and we'll be back. All right, this is Bits and Pieces NYC. John, welcome back. I know you haven't been in this seat for a while now. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
What we're going to do first, we have three special guests with us. Shama, our local guy, our local New York cricket admin. Shama, you're going to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then John, you'll do the honors of introducing our ex-West Indian players. Shama, go ahead.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much, guys, for having me on board today. As you know, my name is Sharma Sugdeo. I'm currently the director of cricket for New York National Cricket League. It's one of the newer leagues that's operating in the tri-state. I'm also the president of my own cricket club, Phoenix Cricket Club. We focus a lot on youth cricket, and most of what I do is involving the youth and the community as well. And I try my best to involve everybody in every culture, every nation, to be a part of one, because that's what New York is about, diversity. So basically, I'm here trying like everybody else.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sharma. John, please introduce our ex-West Indian players.
Well, when you say ex, it sounds like ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, I prefer former.
Former, all right, good.
Just that this man has been ex-out of everything,
It seems to be X marks the spot.
X marks the spot. These two gentlemen certainly don't need much of an introduction in terms of the cricketing community. And when I say the cricketing community, I'm even talking about the current cricketing community. If you're 20 years and older, you would have heard about Gus Logie or Clayton Lambert, no doubt about it. The Clayton himself, a Barbician, as Sharma was saying earlier on, and congratulating Lambie on being a fellow Barbician and all of the stuff he's doing in Barbies, is certainly no stranger to cricket in the Caribbean. In fact, I believe, and Lambie, correct me if I'm wrong here, during the Shell Shield, there's a trophy named after Clayton Lambert, the best batting or the most runs, I believe, trophy. So by way of introduction, he would have made his ODI debut, I believe, in 1990 for the West Indies against England. I had the pleasure of seeing him score 106, and it was a beautiful knock. And I was so happy and glad that my brother, late brother, we were both there to hang out with Lambie afterwards and rub shoulders with a test player and to have a beer or two. and to congratulate him on that century that he scored for the West Indies. So Lambie has been no stranger around the Caribbean and particularly in Guyana. Gus Logie is no stranger to cricket in the Caribbean, having played domestic cricket, I believe, for Trinidad for about 14 or 15 years, and then played for the West Indies about 8 years. I think he made his test debut against India, and I'm sure Gus will correct me if I'm wrong, in 1983. And he would have last played his last test match against England in 1991. Certainly a very good right-handed batsman. Both men, Lambie being left, Gus being right. Hard hitters of the ball, I must say. Gus has been known tremendously for his fielding. And so both gentlemen have contributed significantly to Caribbean cricket and West Indies cricket. Gus would have played during the dominant period of West Indies cricket. He would have played alongside the likes of Clive and these other test players. Lambie would have come by a little later, but both men have contributed significantly to cricket. And I'm happy to see that both men have remained in the cricket environment, so to speak. Lambie as a national coach now in the US, having also played for the US, and Gus a national coach in the Caribbean. So both men continue, despite them being labeled with the X, continue to contribute to cricket. So I like to see a former test cricketer or pros.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction. At the end of the day, playing for the West Indies, playing for Trinidad and Tobago, it pays in comparison in playing for Excelsior in the New York Metropolitan League in the early 80s.
The New York angle.
Yes. You can't forget those. Excelsior, that team was special. When I came there in the early 80s, I remember being introduced to a guy called Victor Logan. He was the owner of that team. And up to today, we are very, very close friends. And my condolences to his wife who passed just a few weeks ago. But both himself, Ricardo Supre and Ronnie Burnett were the people behind that Excelsior brand. And that brand comprised of so many players from all the different countries in the Caribbean. So we were the only team, and I must admit, there was the Shell Shield kind of equivalent in New York at the time, but you had the Jamaica AC, you had Guyana cricket team, you had Barbados cricket team, but the Excelsior cricket team had players from Jamaica, from Trinidad, from Barbados. We were combined. So we were basically a West Indies combined team in the New York metropolitan area. So, I want to say thanks for those early days. Two is about it.
But Nancy, since Gus is talking about Excelsior in New York and the New York angle of cricket, I have no choice but to talk about Atlantis in the New York Yankees cricket, because Clayton has played for Atlantis, and the Atlantis team was really represented the diaspora of West Indies cricket. We've had guys we currently have guys from Jamaica, Barbados. We had players from England, Pakistan, India. We were a real melting pot, Atlantis, and we have continued to be that way. So the New York experience, as Gus would have had, and Lambie, is a totally different experience. If you're playing for a match in Trinidad or Trinidad Club, you're all Trinidadians. You're playing for a club in Guyana, like the Amara Cricket Club, you're all Guyanese. But when you come up here, the real melting pot. And so to speak to that experience is something that's phenomenal. And Sharma too would have, when Sharma's current team, and that in that current league, the New York National Cricket League, there are a multitude of different ethnicities and stuff that play their trade on weekends. So it's great, man.
Good. So Excelsior was the pioneer in that, right?
I don't know, but I'll give you props. I'll give you props.
John, I distinctly remember my first game playing for Atlantis. I was asked to open batting with this guy called Newton. So while we were going out to the middle, I said to him, well, I haven't played on Martin before, so maybe you can take the strike. So he said to me, I was taking the strike anyhow. So I said, then we don't have a problem. Subsequently, the number 4 batsman came in and he faced the ball before I got a chance to face one.
Wow.
Because Newton faced 1 ball and then Boxhill faced 2 balls, but we were 2 wickets down for no runs.
You have to mention that.
After Desmond Thompson came out and we had a partnership.
But Labby, I remember you making a spectacular catch, one of the best I've seen inside, outside domestic cricket, international cricket. I text you, fully extended. And Labby is no lightweight, with all due respect. Labby was fully extended, man, and this ball stuck in this man's hand and he landed full side of the body on the ground. I think it's one of the best catches I've ever seen. And I didn't have it on camera. So you have it in memory and it's remained there.
Right. I remember that was a lefty.
Yes.
A lefty hit the spear leg. I remember that.
Yeah.
All right. John, let's go on that in terms of special moments. So Gus and Lambi, Gus, I'll go to you first. Looking back at your career with your national side and the West Indies side, take us to a moment that you would have lived on the cricket field that when you look back at it, it makes you proud. It makes you feel good that you were a cricketer. And then tell us about that moment where you look back and you kind of sad about what happened. Gus, you go for it.
I am always asked the question, and many people try to possibly expect an individual performance of some sort, and I tend to veer away from that because, I think we've all had those moments where you went out there and you played well, you were in the zone and you had one of those brilliant performances. But to me, really and truly, being a part of a West Indies team that dominated world cricket for over 10 years and playing in that era, I think that to me has epitomized, not only my career, but the career of so many other great players in the country. I played 52 test matches over a period of possibly 10, 12 years. And I do not know what it means to lose a test series. I've never been involved in a test series. In a test series loss. So I cannot really relive that, that experience to the youngsters. So that to me is phenomenal in terms of, team sport. I will always cherish that memory for as long as I live. And I think, at the end of the day, the only regrets you have is that we as a Caribbean team, we as a West Indies team, were not able to really capitalize over the years on such a legacy. We have had sporadic moments where we have won championships, but, over the years, even though we have produced so many great players individually, we have not been able to capture the world, as we did in that era of the Lloyds and the Richards and stuff like that. So to me, that to me is one of the letdowns or disappointments I have up to date.
Right. Okay, thank you. Lambi?
Well, first, when I made my debut, I was a replacement and I got into the changing room and there's 13 guys. So I say, okay, I'm going to play my 12 here. I'm going to make sure I take the water out and everything is good. And then Roy Clinton Fredericks came to me and said, you're Lambert Light. I said, what? So I'm saying, no, man, these guys are setting me out there to get rid of me. However, I had a pretty good start to my career and, managed to run against Andy Roberts and the likes of Garner and Marshall and stuff. But a special moment is a moment John was speaking of earlier. We were playing the Antigua Test match. I really wanted to be involved in a test match victory. I wanted to experience that. So I went to Brian Lara and I said, man, I would really love to win a test match, be in a winning test match team. And he said, it's going to happen. But when the game never looked as if we were going to win it. And then all of a sudden things changed around and we managed to win that game, and that was really special for me.
Okay.
Just experiencing that victory, a test match victory.
Right.
I think he's being modest, Nancy. His 106 was the primary contributing factor to West Indies winning that test match.
Right.
Being modest, but I understand.
Sharma, you're working with a lot of youngsters in the New York area, and we have two very interesting responses just now, where Gus spoke of his pride of with being in a team where he never lost a series. He doesn't know what it is to lose a test match series. And then we have Lambie coming. I mean, it's not that long after, and thirsting for a victory, a test match victory. Sharma, as you listen, what can you draw from this that you can put into a young cricketer now coming up?
Well, as young cricketers, they have to look, which I always say, at the older generation. You learn a lot from the older generation. As Gus mentioned before, he was part of the winning team. He wasn't accustomed to losing. He don't know what that is, basically. I'm quite the opposite from Mr. Lambert. So there's going to be a period of times where games are going to change. Your life is going to change. The way you play is going to change. The way your team plays is going to change. So you have to take every game as you go, ride with those moments, and then learn from your mistakes and learn from whoever is coaching you. Because every team would have mature guys in there that would try to impasse their knowledge and their skill level. So I always advise the younger guys to really look up to the guys that have been there and done that, and try to work on whatever they're telling you from their experience and try to get that in a positive way. So it's two different aspects of the two greats that they experienced, but they were both hungry for the game. Mr. Gus was hungry to win. Same way Mr. Lambert, that was a common thing, hungry to win.
Okay, thank you, Sharma. John, that culture of looking up to the older guys and being inspired by the older guys, where do you think we kind of lost the script there? Because as with the period that Gus played in for the West Indies, I mean, it was one of the, if not the greatest cricketing periods. Where did we lose the script of people being inspired by what others did before?
I think the game, and I'm sure the guys may agree with me, the game has changed over the years. Not so much the format, but the approach to the game has changed. The shorter formats of the game has certainly influenced how people play. And so now you've got one set of cricketers that are being sort of groomed, as they were, self-grooming to play T20. And they're moving further and further away from test match and ODI. It's all about going in there and bowling dot balls or scoring as much 4s and 6s. So I think the game has changed. So yes, we have had the cricketing heroes like the Lamberts and the Augustine Logies and stuff, who played a different type of game. They had to adapt to that. But now these younger players are being asked to adapt to different type of game, they're playing different platforms. First of all, they're playing more cricket. So they might find them reluctant to look and pattern themselves off of the older players. I mean, we're talking about winning and losing. For now, it's all about winning. But if you go back to Michael Jordan said he has lost 300 games 21 times, I think. He's lost more games than he has won. But that's what made him succeed. And so taking the losing that Lambert didn't want to, and taking the winning that Gus Logie experienced, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Some days you're the dog, some days you're the hydrant. But the fact of the matter is that I think the game has changed and people have adapted to the game. It's just like if you go into an environment, you adapt to that environment for survival. And these cricketers are adapting to the current environment So they're moving further and further away from admiring Gus Logies and the Clayton Lamberts of the world. With all due respect to the gentlemen, the game has changed. The game has changed, and people are changing with the game.
I think, in a way, I don't. The game itself, the formats certainly have changed. I think what has changed also is the attitudes and approaches. From a broader perspective, when you talk about a West Indies cricket team, you talk about why do you play the game, and you talk about the diaspora out there. I remember when I came into our West Indies team, Clive Lloyd remember telling us as a young man, wanted to know what was our expectations of being part and parcel of a West Indies team, what it meant to be a West Indian cricketer. We carried some of the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, and not only ourselves, not only our own little communities, not only our own country, but the Caribbean on a whole, the whole diaspora, people who live in New York and Canada, people who live in England, Australia, especially people who were displaced from their own communities and outside there, struggling to make ends meet at the end of the day, and seeing a West Indian team that they can relate to being successful, give them the kind of lift and inspiration to move forward. And in all aspects, not only in cricket, but all aspects of sports, when you have these icons and people who have been successful before, it sort of generates a kind of enthusiasm. It sort of motivates and inspires the next generation. I think for us, what has happened is that we have not really and truly documented so much of what made us successful. You will hear so many different people talk about the fact that many people played in England, and possibly it was the England League that developed our cricketers. You'll find that people will talk so much about, in those times people were poor and therefore that's the only thing they had. So I don't think we actually ever looked at what made us a great cricket team, what made us unite. And at the end of the day, you talk about possibly the Black Power movement in the early days that inspired some of it. Apartheid, all those things came about at the time and helped to make us be the best. We wanted to beat England, we wanted to beat Australia, we wanted to beat all those teams out there, but so now that has changed in a way. You'll find a lot of the young players today are now playing in India, they're playing in England, they're playing with and among some of those players now. So the kind of fierce rivalry may not be there as it used to be. But the pride in what we felt as being West Indian pride, is something that I don't know that you can just wash away just like that. Whether or not it's a different format or different times. People have become a lot more individualistic now. There's no two ways about it, and they're looking after themselves. And possibly what they have seen from some of the former players, the way they were treated back then, even though they were icons, they had been successful, they may not have been treated as well as they should have, back in the Caribbean. And that is another issue possibly. So the youngsters are now looking up for themselves and saying, look, I have to look after myself. I have to look after my family. So what is the best way to do that? It's about, we have small economies. So it's about going out there, playing as much T20 games as is possible, so that I can make as much money as I can to look after my family. But somewhere along the line, we have to remember how we got there. And I think they were nurtured, somewhat in the Caribbean itself, and they cannot afford to forget that. When they go there to represent, they're representing not themselves, but they're representing a nation of proud individuals. So I think it's something that we have to keep preaching about. No one is begrudging anybody in terms of what they would have achieved and stuff like that's great. But I think at the end of when you put on that West Indian blazer, you are not just representing you're representing so much more. There's a legacy that you are representing, and players must understand that. I don't care where you come from, you must understand that, and that is going to be very important going forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Gus. You're watching Bits and Pieces NYC. We've got with us Clayton Lambert, as John said, Clayton and Gus, former, not former West Indian stars, and a local admin, Mr. Sharma Sugdeo. We'll be back with you shortly.
Oh, and has he caught it? He has, and he's given him, no, yes, he's nodding, he's given him out. Well, that was a magnificent catch by Gus Logie. He's taken one or two straightforward ones, but that really was a beautiful catch. It must have been a very thin inside edge, hit the pad, went forward, and Logie, who's really very quick, had to dive way to his left to pick that one up. A lovely catch.
You found that clip because of what I said about Clayton Lambert. Okay, move it to the left. Okay, all right.
I want to make it quite clear as far as Clayton Lambert is concerned, and I am being very, very, very honest here. As I said, we've all had great moments, in the field of play. But when it comes to fielding close to that wicket, I don't think there's anybody second to none to that man yesterday in front of you. This guy was fearless. He was fearless. I used to see him going, playing against Guyana, and he would be feeling there against for bowlers like Roger Harper, Hooper, all these little, those kind of bowlers. No. I will go there with the fast bowlers like the Marshall, the Ghana. These guys have a certain reputation that I feel comfortable with. I wasn't going to go there. For some of the bowlers, I see this guy going and feel close to. No. He used to come in.
No silly me down for you.
Hitting the ball and he's coming in instead of running away. No.
Exactly. Challenging the batsman.
So Gus was full stretch to his left there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He found the clip because I spoke about the catch. You made
that. Maybe I knew you were going to say it, so I had it all ready, all queued up, right? Yeah, just tell us about your, fearlessness in the field. I mean, as a young boy growing up playing cricket, was feeling something that you necessarily said, hey, I'm going to make myself good at this, or was it something that just evolved?
I think it's a combination of two things. I remember as a young man in the primary school area, time we went to a training session in a place called Point Fortin, and there was a gentleman there who was called William Guadalupe. He was the coach. They had sent about 50 or 60 students to this one gentleman, and obviously he had to try and select a squad to play. At that time was a West Hall Youth League or something like that in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think he devised a plan as to how he was going to eliminate so many of these players. And for the first 2 weeks, we never saw a bat, we never saw a ball. All we were doing is physical fitness. We were running 100 meters, 400 meters, running, miles around the savannah. We were doing all these different exercises, sit-ups, push-ups, whatever you call it. But we weren't seeing a bat or a ball. And many of the players, by the second week, we were down to about 30 from 50. And by the second week, we were down to about 20. Because guys said, look, I didn't come here to run track. I came here to learn cricket. So I think fitness and was very important to him, and he made it quite clear in the early days that if you want to play this game, you got to be fit. And fielding, was also very part of that getting fit. So he would, throw balls for you to run, pick up pelts and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I think he inculcated that kind of attitude and approach into all of us at that stage. So people like DB said, people like Roy Jacobs, all these youngsters who came around that time, developed this ability to feel and love for fielding, because he also said, look, you're going to spend the majority of time in a game, sometime on the field. So you may bat and not score any runs, but you have to field for as long as it's possible. So you might as well be competent, doing it. And I think that sort of build us up. And I think the more you did, the more you felt comfortable. And at the end of the day, you began to get a reputation as a super sub many times in, even at the West Indies level. We used to tell guys, look, you bat, I will field for you sometimes. People couldn't understand that in a team environment. You're not playing, you're 12. But the only way you can get involved in the game is by being out in the field, running someone out, taking a catch, saving a few runs. So you always had this situation whereby you were plus, you weren't minus. So that love grew, and in that environment you were also very competitive even with your own teammates, because no one wanted the ball to pass them, no one wanted to drop a catch. So that you fed off each other, so there was an environment where improvement must have been, you would have seen improvement all the time.
Okay. And Nancy, that is something I think, and Sharma can bear me out in this, that seems to be lacking now. You tell a player he's 12th man, and first inclination for some of them, not all of them, is to sulk, right? But what Gus just put into perspective, being a 12th man gives you an opportunity to go there and perform. So that the next time they're picking 11, you might very well get picked for your fielding abilities.
Exactly.
And you would not have had a chance to showcase that if you sulk and didn't want to be 12th man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you see that goes back to the era of Gus Logie. The cricket was not playing as much as it is right now. So in the New York metropolitan area, there's so much cricket playing that a guy feel like if he can sit out from one team, he can just leave and go to another team and get a game because there's so
Right.
much cricket playing, during the summertime, during the week, even, it's getting to that point. So it's difficult to find a young guy that will be able to sit down and try to, be hungry to go and prove himself. You'll find the one or two here and there, but the majority, no, it's hard to find.
Okay. You're watching Bits and Pieces NYC. Our special guests are Gus Logie and Clayton Lambert. With them, we have Mr. Sharma Subdeo, an admin of the New York cricket scene. We'll be back with you shortly.
Smashed away through the onside this time by Lambert. Yet another boundary. 7 fours and a 6. And we're only in the 7th over of the innings. Beaten away, it's gone straight through. Philip Tufnell away for yet another 4.
So let me tell us about the evolution of your attacking stroke play, your attacking approach to the game.
I think when we start playing, we want to hit the ball. And when I started in the country, I would look to swing the leg a lot. However, as I started playing more competitive cricket, my batting got much more cultured, but still at a young age, you develop the power that you can hit the ball. And I mean, if your eyes are good enough, you might see things that other guys may not see, and you may hunt. I mean, Gus was probably more attacking than me. Come on.
I remember both of us playing an innings against Ireland. We went on that last tour that I went on in England. We went to Ireland. I don't know if you remember that, where we both scored hundreds against them. You know what I mean? And as I said before, it was contrasting styles, and it was just beautiful to watch. So maybe one of these good days you should get that particular tape and that particular innings. I think it's somewhere out there on YouTube or something like that. And especially for the young players in your area, Mr. Sharma, and say, look, this possibly is the way you do it. In partnerships with each other. When one is going, the other one takes it easy, hits the ones and the twos, and then when the other one has a little lull, then you take over. So you support and you complement each other out there at the end of the day. So maybe it could be a coaching tool, And just to add, as a matter of fact, as you say, we are former cricketers, former players, but we have been involved in the game ever since. We've been passing on our expertise in the coaching environment. We've been doing development programs, so we've always been involved in giving back to the sport, and to many people. I think over the years, and it's something that I still do. I'm here in Bermuda at the moment, and I've been here before, and to still see the enthusiastic youngsters when you go there to the field and you give them a little tip here and there, and to see them going out there and executing it. It still gladdens the heart, you actually not out there physically, but just seeing them executing some of the skills that you may have passed on, some of the advice you may have passed on, and then they do well, and then they, in today's world, they come back, and now because of COVID, nobody hugs anymore, so they give you a bounce.
Yeah, those impactful moments, they're very good for a youngster in what you do. I can remember myself back in Guyana when I was in under 15 age. I remember Mr. Roger Harper came to one of our camps, and he was showing us how to bowl and do certain drills, and that's something I still remember to this day. So every little thing that yourself, Mr. Lambert, and players of your kind could do would be a big impact to a youngster's life, and there's something they're never gonna forget, and they always pass it on.
Okay, you're watching Bits and Pieces. Go ahead, Lambert.
I think that the first game that I played against Gus Logie might be too long ago for him to remember. But it was 1979 on the 19 cricket at Border.
Oh, that's a long time.
I doubt if Gus would remember that game.
Not all the details, but fill me in. You never know, you never know. Something bits and pieces might come.
Daniel's bowling like
exactly.
No, at the time, Gus was recognized. He had played a lot of on the 19 cricket. I think it was his last season, my first. So everyone is talking about Gus Logie, and you see the little guy walk out there and start beating ball, Roger Harper flighting and Gus down the wicket. And I mean, that was inspiring to me to see somebody go after Roger, because we had a lot of respect for Roger's bowling at the time, and he was playing him very comfortable. So it was inspiring to me, but I guess he wouldn't have noticed me then.
you weren't as aggressive back then, huh?
No, I made 70 in the game. I made 70.
That's not bad.
Those early days, there was always a healthy rivalry. There was always, because I think anybody who saw youth cricket in those days could have seen the potential in so many of the players on either side. And you can just cast your eye and you see quality, and you know that these players will go on at some stage to represent not only their national senior team but West Indies for one day. And as it has come to pass, so many of the players that we would have played against in those days and in different teams, if you can count and see how many of those players really and truly made it to the top level. So at the end of the day, as much as we inspire each other, there were people who inspired us as well. West Indies cricket meant so much to us. We talked about, our love for the game. In school, in those early days, whenever West Indies team came to a particular territory, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, the government schools, you got a day off to actually go and see, a test match.
Yeah.
One day. I mean, we lived so far in the south, there's no way we were going to go to the Oval. But we played our little test match in our little savannas, in our little backyards. So it was England came, you had England versus West Indies. So we pick our team, and sometimes the guys on the other side were the English and we were the West Indies. So we took on the names of those players who played at the time. So that is how that sort of inspiration was there from earlier clock. So and I don't know if it happens anymore, believe it or not. I don't know, but I can tell you in those days it was a big thing. And I felt if you're getting a day off to go and watch cricket, cricket means something in the community. So I don't know if the schools are doing it today, the governments are still doing it, whereby cricket is being played, you get a day off to go and watch cricket. I don't know, but maybe some things we could learn from the past.
Have you heard of it still happening, John?
No, not so much so. I remember when Brian Lara broke Gary Sobers' record, the courts in Antigua came to a standstill. The judges suspended court until after he passed the record. So I wouldn't be. So if you're being sentenced, you had a couple more minutes or hours by before you got sentenced. I don't think it happens as much now because the sports in general in the Caribbean is being very diversified. A lot less kids are playing cricket than they played back in Gus and my time and Clayton's time. And a lot of them are playing basketball, soccer, and other sports that they see on TV. So I don't think the euphoria is there as it used to be in those days. I remember going half day from school, sneaking into border when my father didn't get me a ticket to watch a test match. Or you pick, you're going day one and you're going on the third day. And that was part and parcel of our culture. Now I think it's less so now, which is unfortunate, but it's the way things have evolved over the years.
Right. Okay. All right. You're listening to Bits and Pieces NYC. And when we come back after the break, we want to look at cricket at the Olympics. And in particular, should we, when cricket does come to the Olympics, should we play as a West Indies unit or should we break it up? We'll be back shortly. Lambi, there's a movement towards ensuring that cricket comes to the Olympics. Not the next one, but the one in 2028. I'll get straight to the question: should we play as a West Indies unit, or should countries be allowed, to participate as they would in other sports disciplines? What's your view?
I think to be competitive, we should, but I don't think it's going to happen.
As individual teams?
Each country is going to want that glory. But for us to be competitive and try to win, we should go as West Indies.
Okay. What's your take, Gus?
I think it's the ideal thing. If you, to be quite honest, you will want to go with what you will consider to be your strongest outfit, obviously. But the Olympic movement is completely different to what we're used to. I think first of all, the Commonwealth Games is going to be on sometime in the next year or two, and it's already established that you cannot go as a united front. You have to go as individual territories. So I think that possibly Barbados or Trinidad, one of those teams will be representing the region, if you want to call it that, in the Commonwealth Games. So I think the Olympic Association, each territory have their own Olympic Association, and therefore at the end of the day, that's how it's structured. That is about individual territories, so that side of the politics is bigger than you and I.
Right.
So but it'll be nice to see cricket in the Olympics, whatever format. It may be a T10 format, who knows? It might be the way cricket is going on, it might be a T5 just now. But whatever format it's in, I'd be happy for representatives from the Caribbean to be there, get exposure, because that's what it's all about at this point in time. It's about exposure, it's about entertainment. At the end of the day, it's about giving opportunities to so many young people who may not have had the opportunities to be on a global stage and showing what they can do. So to me, it's all good. The game itself will be recognized as an Olympic game, and you have individuals possibly could win a gold medal somewhere in the Caribbean outside of that. And as I said about that, I want to congratulate all the athletes from the Caribbean who went to the Olympics, and to Jamaica especially for dominating, and especially the women and stuff dominating in the fields. I have to say commiserations to Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time. We weren't able to get a medal. But, like everything else, Bermuda, I have to congratulate Bermuda winning their first gold medal. I am here now, so I'm basking in the sunshine and the limelight of Miss Duffy. So, but and that's what happens. Right now, there's certainly a lot of young people who wants to be a triathlete and to follow in our footsteps. So that's what we talk about in the early days. Success breeds success, and I think people want to be involved and want to be part of that. We can only do our best at this point in time as far as Western cricket is concerned to pass the message along that we can be successful again if we continue to commit to ourselves, work hard, and be disciplined and responsible.
Mm-hmm. But Gus, what happened to the Hasley Crawfords? But anyway, that's another story. But Trinidad at some point in time wanted to go on its own playing cricket, huh?
Well, I think it had been muted. I think that is that, and that happened especially when the T20 cricket just came about. As you remember, when we just started the T20, the Stanford T20 situation, we had won it 1 or 2 times, and we went to the Champions League, and then of course, once they realized that that whole thing has been disbanded in such a way, as you say, and you found that individuals won't get the same opportunities as before because you keep producing 20, 30, 40 of these guys who are all over the globe in terms of the IPL. At one time we had about 7 or 8 players playing in the IPL, in Narines, the Pollards, the Bravos, all these guys, So I think for some people it was a narrow-minded, approach to wanting to go on their own for selfish reasons, because you couldn't just keep producing those kind of players year in, year out. I think it happened in the past where Barbados at one time wanted to go on their own as well when they had, so many of the great players because they felt Barbados could produce a test team. And they literally did. But to sustain that over a period of time, it was going to be impossible. Look at now, you can hardly find 5 or 6 really world-class players coming out of Barbados as before. So it was a narrow-minded view from some, but at the end of the day, I don't think it was sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, John.
Yes, sir.
Gus just dropped a very important name. And I think I want us to talk a little bit about him. Would you say that, we know what the whole story with Stanford and thing, but would you say that Stanford was good for Windies cricket?
Well, if you ask Michael Holding, he would say no. I think up to a point it was, because I've been to a number of the Stanford T20 matches. I left New York because I love cricket. And what I saw him doing for cricket then, I think augurs well for the future, in that at some point in time, he had 60% of the attendees in the ground were women and children. And you don't build a bigger fan base than women and children. Men gonna go to cricket regardless. But what he was trying to do was make it a family entertainment outing kind of thing. And he was the right visionary because he brought entertainment to the cricket ground. And this is before the IPL, before the ISL, before the Big Bash, before all of these things. Stanford created that environment of entertainment. In the past, we've gone to test matches and your mother or your father pack a bag and the men put a little flatty of rum in the bag there, and half of them don't know the score because they're too busy drinking. And a 4-hit in a tournament and say, yeah. But they, after the score, they don't know. That was the entertainment. But now you've got between innings, between overs entertainment. So it become more of a family thing. And I think Stanford kind of created that environment. So that was the plus. The model that, and this is where Mikey Holding disagrees with the Stanford thing, was not a sustainable model. And obviously we know the end result now, fast forward, where the money was coming from. That was not sustainable. But at the point in time that Alan Stanford wanted to push cricket, he wanted to give each of the boards, I believe it was $250,000 US. And even then his model was good. If you put on a pitch and it costs $10,000, I'll pay for that. But I'm not giving the entire money up front because you know what's going to happen there, right, with some of the boards. So there are some things about Stanford that was good, but obviously we know the end result now, and it wasn't a sustainable model. You could not sustain that model, that level of excitement, unless you had money coming in constantly, which is probably what he had planned to do, but didn't turn out. So I like what he did. I think he did a lot for cricket and the shorter form of the game in terms of an entertainment value. But I think overall it might have hurt cricket in the Caribbean.
Okay. What's your take on the Stanford era, Lambi?
I support John's view. It certainly started to move the cricket in the right direction where the players could sustain themselves, and maybe it is backfiring now that when you look at Gus's point that not all of the players might be understanding that they're representing the West Indies, but still you cannot be annoyed with them for taking care of themselves because of what might have happened before. But it certainly has it has pointed the cricket in the right direction for me, because the IPL and all the other big tournaments, I'm sure they started looking at this, what he did,
right,
and then adapted the model, and of course they would make it much better and something like sustainable, because in the Caribbean we can come up with beautiful things, but we don't always look 10 years down the line to get the right infrastructure to keep it rolling.
right. Okay, good point. Thank you, Lambi. Gus, what's your takeaway from the Stanford era?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Stanford used other people's money to really actually try to sustain a league. But that was a great vision. There's no two ways about it. And I think the benefits of that were the many players who would have benefited tremendously from that injection of funds in the Caribbean. They got exposure. We exposed quite a lot of cricketers to the T20 format. Many of them became millionaires out of it. As I said before, it was unfortunate. It was some other people's money that was used, and but at the end of the day, it did really and truly created a revolution of sort in the T20 arena. And of course, what has happened in the IPL was been as I say, a continuation of what he would have started.
Right.
He also brought a lot of former players to form what you call a board, whereby those players would have then gone into different territories in the Caribbean and share their expertise with individual people. Tremendous benefit to many. I think I myself would have benefited from having Sagafi Subas come to Trinidad. I myself benefited from having West Hall visit Trinidad. I myself was in Bermuda at the time when I, had Curtly Ambrose and some of these. So Viv came to Bermuda to help support the whole infrastructure here. So many boards across the Caribbean benefited from having Stanford's vision, articulated throughout the Caribbean. Of course, what we should have taken from it was the model in terms of, can the West Indies Cricket Board follow suit and have that same impetus with all the greats, the former greats involved in development of our cricket throughout the Caribbean, because even when he had his particular team, that Stanford team, that team played against England and destroyed England, for 20 million or whatever the case may be. Because that team was prepared well, they had some of the best coaches, they had some of the best physios, so a certain amount of professionalism started to gather in the Caribbean, and players all of a sudden started to understand what professionalism is all about. Being fit is all about eating right, doing the right thing. So it's an offshoot from that you're seeing now, even in some of our cricket at that level. As I said before, it was a situation whereby it's other people's money that we use. It was fraudulent, and of course, we have a certain stigma attached to that at this point in time. But we never really and truly tried to grasp the other aspect of it, which was the organizational part of it. And of course, in the Caribbean, we sometimes don't get the kind of support financially from our corporate sponsors to really, put
Right.
into development of our cricketers. We could not. When you look at India and the IPL in India, they have all these owners who own in all these teams and stuff, but the BCI controls that. You understand? But they put in millions of dollars. We have a CPL in the Caribbean and we don't own it. You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we
Right.
always at somebody else's mercy. That's what David Rudder always say. We are little
Yes.
tiny islands of conflict and confusion, but we have talent.
Interesting.
You know the lyrics. Gus is right, Nancy. I think Stanford brought to that Stanford Stars the kind of discipline that is lacking in some teams. And I wouldn't accuse the West Indies of lacking it. But those players who were involved at the time, I remember being in Antigua for the Stanford thing and having an all-access pass. So I had access to the players and stuff. And a batsman from Guyana, I won't mention his name, lost 20 pounds in the 3 weeks that they were training. And he's the fittest he ever was at that point in time. He has since put back on the 20 pounds, but I saw them working out. I saw them dress alike and go out to dinner. And they really blended as a team. And I think that kind of discipline that Stanford demanded, not a team, he demanded of them, says a lot about how well the team performed, as Gus pointed out, to win the $20 million.
Yeah. But when you have $1 million to be disposed of, you could eat a few steaks. So obviously.
Yeah. That is true. You can eat well. Lobster. How many?
All right. You're watching Bits and Pieces. And when we get back, we'll have our closing question.
Leg stump. Super cricket, entertaining and very interesting.
You wouldn't have played one of those in your time, would you, Jeff? Logie given out. Took some time, umpire Cumberbatch. Logie coming in, not underarming the ball, or rather keeping possession of it. He knew he had the measure of Rashid Latif.
Well, I certainly never played a shot like Rashid Latif did, but I've done exactly like him here and run myself out on a number of occasions. Lovely feeling and a good decision by the umpire.
Man, I had a lot of hair then.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah, no way that hat would fit on this now. Eh?
and Nancy, if you don't mind, I wanted to get Clayton Lambert's take on the Olympics, the issue of the Olympics, because the ICC just made a bid for the Olympics, right, for 2028 in United States. Lambert is involved in U.S. cricket at the highest level. What is your take, Clayton, on the United States hosting the Olympics and the possibility of a U.S. team playing in the Olympics? And what are some of the challenges that you might see, preventing them from succeeding?
I mean, that would be great. I think anytime a country has the opportunity to host an Olympic, it's really good for the economy, for starters. Um, the fact that a US team would get an opportunity to play in the Olympics would be brilliant for not just the team playing, but I think it would help to generate the interest in cricket in the right circles. Because right now, cricket is mainly played by Commonwealth expats, right? And we need to get more Americans and colleges and schools involved in the cricket for it to really grow at the rate that we would like it to grow. Unless those institutions are involved, I don't think it will have the type of success or the immediate success that we want. So if US get that opportunity, I'm sure it would help to generate that interest. And of course, ICC has their eye on the prize, and they're going to do all that they can do to ensure that US has that opportunity to host the game.
Yep. I think it's a great opportunity to introduce the sport to the United States sports enthusiasts, to the United States sports landscape. Right now, cricket is struggling to get above all the noise with all the other sports. And I think if we can get the US into the Olympic Games, Americans love medals. They love what's happening with the gold medals and stuff like that. I can see Americans getting behind the cricketers in the United States, and that will certainly catapult the sport, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I think
if I
can just interject here now and say is that the preparation needs to start as of yesterday. You don't want to wait until 2028 when the Olympic comes to start thinking about getting in there. You want to be able to make the groundwork now, do the groundwork now, get into the schools, the universities.
Well, Lambert is part of the groundwork right now.
Yeah,
and Clayton, yes, that's what happened with soccer. What women did for soccer in this country is phenomenal. And I believe cricket can be the same thing too.
Right. Anything to add to that, Sharma?
At the end of the day,
Go ahead, Clayton.
At the end of the day, like Gus say, the infrastructure is important, but if such hosting the game is possible, I don't think infrastructure would be an issue, because these cities would get behind and do what they need to do.
Right.
Because it's going to generate
revenue.
It's going to generate the funds for the city, and that's all they want.
The economic impact footprint, yes.
Right. America is actually the largest market for sports, and we all know that. So it is a great thing to get that involved here. As to Mr. Logie's maybe concern, grassroots cricket in America, there are crickets being played in the schools. Not every school, but it has been playing for the past at least 10 years or so in the New York City region. The grassroots of cricket needs a little bit more work if we're going to have homegrown cricketers. There needs to be more structures in place to guide and teach and educate the youngsters on what's needed to elevate and get into that game. I'm not sure what the plan is for the U.S. board. Mr. Lambert may know a little bit more about what the structure is for the kids and out of high school and middle school and stuff like that. But the grassroots of cricket really needs assistance, and it's something that I'm trying to do locally as much as I can. With John knows I run an under 25 tournament. We get involved in a lot of youth cricket. We have NYPD that has under 19 tournaments, but it's still not enough cricket that's being played. We have school cricket that plays maybe a month or 2 months in the summer, and then after the summer break, the kids really don't play much. Either they get into a club or they don't. And we need to facilitate that in order for us to grow and for cricket to grow in the country and for people to get behind cricket. We need to facilitate the grassroots product. Like Mr. Lambert and Mr. Logie, you guys are all you cricketers, and you know the importance of what cricket played in your life.
Yeah,
And the importance of it being when you were young, it was passed in you as a youngster, and you grew up with that.
Yeah.
So a cricketer, it starts from a young age. Whatever teachings and discipline, it starts from a young age.
Very important.
If I can jump in, most of the structure of youth cricket is organized cricket. I am presently in North Carolina. I just had on the 13 team participate in a national tournament, and now on the 15 team just arrived. They're going to play over the next 4 days, and also on the 11 team, which has one player that's 7 years old, and he's already scored 250s.
That's nice.
In tournaments. So the only thing is that there are only maybe 16 or 18 academies that participate in these tournaments, and for such a large country, that is not enough. I mean, I'm head coach at an academy with 170 kids, but still we don't have enough coaches to really offer the type of program we want to offer them.
Okay.
So it's not just the kids not being there, is the amount of qualified coaches that's available. There's a lot of things that goes in with the infrastructure.
Are you aware of if there's any plan from the U.S. board's perspective to implement such tournaments nationwide? Because locally here in New York, we don't have, under 13 or anything close to that. So
you do.
have maybe. We do.
You do. New Jersey has it. Most of these teams that they're affiliated with an academy, and New Jersey plays in all of the tournaments. So in New York, maybe some of your guys play with the New Jersey guys. But New Jersey plays in every one of these tournaments, and there's about 5 of them each year. And the finals is in Thanksgiving weekend in Texas. And it's on the 19, on the 17, on the 15.
I guess my main question would be, is there a plan to make it nationwide so that every state could have the same setup, the same facility, the same type of academy?
Well, I know I'm not speaking on behalf of U.S. cricket, and I don't pretend to speak for U.S. cricket, but I know they published recently a foundational plan which creates a pathway for cricketers, boys and girls. And part of what they will be rolling out shortly is a school kiddie program, like from 7 years up. And that would be a nationwide rollout. And they'll do it by involving the academies. They were encouraging academies to register with the cricket so that they can get a sense of the landscape, how many academies are there, where they're located, and where they need to allocate resources. So I know from the U.S. Cricket Foundational Plan, and the plan is there. It's on their website, and where they show the pathway for cricket. I think one of the missing elements, and you raised it, Sharma, about youth cricketers in the high schools. Yes, New York has, I think, 35 or 36 high schools. Because of COVID-19 this year, it got reduced down to 12. But they have 36 high schools, and there are a number of high schools waiting to come on board. The problem is not so much the cricket in the high schools, and yes, they should be playing more cricket. But when between high school and college, or when they get into college, there's no cricket, right? You need, and U.S. cricket, I'm sure is working in it to try to get the colleges involved. So you get the NWCA cricket, like how you have NWCA baseball, soccer, basketball. And if you can get cricket into the colleges, that is can catapult the sport up. Because cricketers coming out of the academies, playing in high school, they go on to college, they lose 4 years. where they don't play any cricket, they come back to the communities, they lost those skills, or they acquired basketball skills, and which don't really translate. So I think the pathway is there. The question is now whether, like Lambert said, do we have enough coaches to sustain 170 kids in one location? One man can't coach 170 kids at the same time. So they will also need to train coaches as well. It's a multi-pronged approach to getting that infrastructure built up.
Right. Yeah, there is definitely the gap from high school to college, and like I say, there is a gap that we need to find as cricket lovers, a bridge to assist, because there's cricketers that are late bloomers. You might have a guy play cricket in high school and he's not that great, but then later on he's something else. So we need to bridge that gap to allow individuals like that to elevate and go further, and if cricket is to be a career for them.
I think one of the areas that U.S. cricket can tap into is the softball. Now, every school, every high school, every community has a softball team. Not all the kids make it onto the field. Many of them sit on the bench, right? They've developed the eye-and-hand coordination skills in softball. Those are skills that are easily transferable to cricket, right? Baseball academies, you've got kids hitting the ball. It's just a question of moving the bat from here to down here, because they're already developing the eye-and-hand coordination. And if U.S. cricket can tap in to that and encourage those kids to not sit in the bench. Look, come off the bench. You're going to be playing here. There, you're not playing, you're sitting on the bench. Here's another opportunity. And give them another option, a sporting option in the schools, in high school, in the colleges and stuff like that. I think we can make it. The U.S. women's team, I've got two ladies who made the transition from softball to cricket and are doing pretty well.
Okay. All right.
John, I think scholarships are very important, because most of these sports that these kids play, they have an opportunity to get a scholarship, and sometimes a full scholarship to go to college, right? Without a college education here, you can't really get a decent job. And if playing cricket can get them a scholarship, I do believe that more people would get interested in playing cricket.
Absolutely.
Especially like young Caribbean kids.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I feel if the sport is to grow here in the US, it needs to go back to the grassroots. You need to implement those things to encourage, and you have to build from there to come up to where you need to be. It's difficult if you're gonna go to climb a tree from the top instead of coming from the bottom. So that's the ideals that they need to look at and reevaluate. If the sport is to grow, cricket has been playing here for over 100 years. We all know that. Why hasn't it taken to that level that baseball and basketball has been? But grassroots implementation is very important.
All right, my closing question, based on all you guys would have been saying over the past 5 minutes or so. And Gus, I will go to you first. We hear about the need for scholarships, good grounds, coaches, etc. But one thing I have not really seen in the US, and Gus, I don't know, will you suggest how do we get there? That passion that begins in a driveway, on the street, where somebody puts up a wicket, and you playing cricket on any little space that you can find. I don't see that at all in the US. I mean, you would go around and you would see the guys shooting hoops around any available basketball thing. I don't see kids playing cricket in that way. And for me, I think that is where it begins. That's where the passion begins. In the yard, in the driveway. How do you see us getting that passion going in the US, Gus?
But you talk about it, it's almost like a culture. You see, you will see that in the Caribbean, because we in the Caribbean, you have what you call a cricket culture. America, the culture, I don't know, is the cricket culture in America. I think what we have brought cricket to America, even though they've been playing for quite a long time. But in the Caribbean, we bring cricket culture to America. But many of the youngsters, when they leave the islands and come to America, their first option is not really to come and play cricket, it's to try and improve their lives. And
Right.
try to, I just say, go to a college, get their education as Lambert says, and try to get a whole longer job. Cricket is always like a side, is like a side, something on the side. I don't want to talk about
Recreational, yeah.
yeah, it's a recreation. So
Right.
at the
Right.
end of the day, it's difficult. Cricket is also a very expensive game. I don't think we understand how expensive cricket is. As you talk about a hoop, you can put a hoop up and get a basketball, and everybody can have a good time doing that. Cricket is a very expensive game. It has quite a few tools involved, and you need surfaces to play that. It's just in a safe environment. You don't want to be playing cricket at the side of the road, and next thing you hit somebody's car, and before you know it, you need space. You need playing facilities. You need indoor facilities. It's very, very important. So it's an expensive sport. It's a sport that takes a lot more to really learn the rudiments of the game as well. It's not just as easy as kicking a soccer ball and you're okay. It takes a lot of the technical expertise to learn the game takes a while. So you really have to come from a cricketing background, cricketing culture, to be able to really, first of all, understand the game. I myself have played the game so many years, and the amount of rules that comes into the game now, you can't keep up. It makes the game so difficult now to even contemplate. But I think all the ideas that were put forward are valid ideas. But at the end of the day, with Olympics in the air, that is a carrot that can be put to the different, organizations. How can we capitalize on having the Olympics in our own backyard? What do we need to do at this point in time? We talk about getting coaches. How do you then develop the coaches? Who are the people who are going to be tutors? Are you going to bring people in? Are you going to get those that you have going around to the schools, talking to the teachers and themselves, and getting the teachers involved, the Ministry of Education, however it is? Sometimes in countries like Australia I've been to, whereby you go into the schools and you have sessions with the young people, the teacher or the form teacher will come have a look at what you're doing, so that when you leave, they can continue it. You come back another time and you do another session. Some of these teachers get extra credit for just being involved in that particular sport. So all those incentives will have to be, given, so that you get interest from everyone involved, because it's not just one individual who's going to make the difference. You need a cadre of people around you with different expertise to really actually bring on that kind of interest in the sport. But very important going forward is that if you have the numbers, which is going to be important, you have to make sure that you have the support system around them. And at the end of the day, you have the incentives to tell them, well, look, this is what can be accrued from you being involved in the game of cricket. So,
Right. Okay,
Well
great.
said.
Thank you so much for that. Lambi, coming off of what Gus was talking about, the culture of cricket. Is there a way that it can be transplanted to the US?
It depends on which community you're talking about, because like a number of the kids, and I mean a higher number than a lower number, has cricket nets in the backyard in Atlanta.
Okay.
Their parents are building nets in the yard. Some of them have nets in the yard and in the basement in case it rains. Right? And it's just what like most of our guys are from India, and they still revel in the sport. The parents want them to play, and the kids are buying into it, and they want to play. Right? Getting like most of the Caribbean kids, they want to play more American sports. Their dads are still playing at 60 or 62, right? But you could never find a young guy that's in America that's coming to play. All of the young guys are coming from Jamaica or the other Caribbean islands with skills that is playing in the league. But homegrown or people that have been living here for some time. That's not happening there. But in the other communities, you're finding like Australian, South Africans, you know, their kids are coming to play. But the West Indian kids are staying away.
A discussion for another time, right?
I can just add my views to the culture transfer. I feel that the culture could be transferred, and I think the Olympics can be that gateway. And I'm going to piggyback on what Mr. Logie said earlier in the discussion. The West Indies has inspired the nation. It has invoked that passion and that spirit in us that make every youngster want to play cricket in every free spare time that they have, because we were inspired. West Indies inspired the nation, and it comes back to where I say I don't feel that the Caribbean countries should play as individuals in the Olympics, because I feel West Indies is the glue to the Caribbean. We're all proud West Indians, not proud Trinidadians or Guyanese. We're proud West Indians, and that's something that's very valuable, and it's been there for years. And I feel if we go as proud West Indians, or the Indians go to the Olympics and they do very well, and the US goes and do very well, it's going to invoke that spirit right here. Not say it's going to happen the first time around, but it's going to grow eventually.
Yeah, but as Gus was saying, you know, it will be dependent on the rules of the IOC. If the IOC says, you know,
Right.
it's okay. If the IOC says it's not okay, then, you know.
Yeah, we all have our own views, though.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Okay, John, can you close us out? Thank you, guests and so on.
Sure, no problem. I particularly want to thank Gus and Clayton for coming on board today's show. Certainly your perspectives, I'm sure, very much appreciated by the viewers as well as the listeners, those who are not viewing and listening maybe. And to thank Sharma for coming on board and giving his perspective. Sharma is immensely immersed and involved in league cricket in New York area. And so that perspective was good. I think we did a lot of challenging topics from culture and the DNA of cricket and being within us, to the Olympics, to how these two gentlemen aspire to their careers. I would have liked to have heard a bit more from Gus and Clayton, how their cricket careers really climbed to the top. But I know time does not permit us to do. But from the perspective that these two gentlemen shared with us, from their lived experience of the sport, I think is phenomenal. It's fantastic. And I hopefully that the younger audience who might have been listening would have gleaned something from it and have to take away something from it. Yep. But thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Before I leave, I mean, it will be remiss of me if I don't at least thank you for inviting me to be here. I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. As you say, I've had fun memories of, as I said, cricket in New York. And maybe one of these days I'll come back again and maybe we'll talk about, you know, when I first made the West Indies team and I was in New York playing and I got a call and all these sort of things. And to thank all the people like Victor Logans, the Sucres, the Burnett's, you know, Buster Scotty, all the people who made it possible. Rose. I mean, there were so many people, you know, gift thanks, and the names are just coming out of the
gift
road,
thanks.
you know, it's just unbelievable, you know.
You remember gift thanks.
They've all, they've all so come and, you know, they've all made it worthwhile being in New York.
So John, what happened to Excelsior?
Well, you know, like everything else, you grow old and you just move away from it.
Hey, Gus and Clayton, Atlantis got a few open slots, okay? If you guys want to make a comeback. You're welcome back to New York.
All right, man, anytime.
Like I said, I'm already at 60, so I don't need to push no more singles.
Any 40 can come, man. Come on.
And my sister would kill me if I didn't say a shout out to my sister who's been there in Queens, Phyllis, and her husband Terry, and certainly her daughter, you know, Shalana. So great stuff.
Okay, great. And hi from us, hi from John and I to your sisters.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, you know, it has been real fun, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on to Bits and pieces.
Not a problem.
All right. That's all for this evening. Take care, guys. And thank our viewers for staying with us, for your comments. And please stay tuned. Next week, we'll be back for more bits and pieces.